Hello, Russ Lamano here from Cloud Company. Today we're going to go over some quick tips on the 360 machine. Occasionally the machines stop in service, and the tips I'm going to show you today will help you get it back into service quickly. The first thing we want to do is check the nozzles for obstructions. You may find the machine or the maintenance staff or somebody in the seller crew has brought the machine back into the shop because it's not rotating. So the first thing we want to do is check down inside the nozzles and look for obstructions. You can use a flashlight, or you can use somewhere with some decent light, and you can look down in there and really simply look for obstructions. And you want to check all the nozzles because even if one nozzle is plugged, it can slow the machine down or cause it to stop. So you want to look for obstructions in the machine, in the nozzles. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to check the machine for end play. We're going to check for binding. So what we want to do is look over the machine. The first thing I want to show you is to look for this normal play. You'll find some play in the gear teeth, and that is normal, so that's nothing to be concerned about. It should move around this much, so that's okay. So the first thing you want to do is look at the end play of the nozzle carrier. And so basically what we're going to do is move this housing back and forth, and we're looking for play along that axis. So we're going to grab onto the unit. We're looking for play back and forth between the two housings. So I'm going to move this housing back and forth. It's a little hard to do, but you'll feel and you'll hear if there's play there, like there should be. You'll feel and hear that small click. Okay, so that means that this nozzle carrier is not frozen or bound up, and it should operate properly. The next thing you're looking for is end play in the T-housing. So in a very similar fashion, we're going to look and listen for that end play. And I'm going to use my fingers and my palms, kind of like, in a way, almost like a jack. So we're going to grab onto this here, and I'm going to use it to lift up and down, and you can feel and hear that that machine has end play. If there's end play there, that means that this housing that rotates around is going to be free and it won't be stuck, and that's going to ultimately make sure the machine is rotating. The next thing we want to check is to see if the rotor shaft is free. So we're going to get our pliers and we're going to remove that snap ring. The next item we're going to remove is the screen or the filter. The next item we're going to get to is the stator, so we're going to get that out of our way as well. And now what that's going to do is allow us to get to the rotor. And what we want to do is check the rotation of this rotor and rotor shaft. And so you can stick your finger in there, and basically what we want to do is see if this rotor shaft and rotor are free. So I'm using my finger to do that now. You can also use a pair of pliers that you used before, and you can check this shaft for rotation. And so once the rotor shaft starts to spin, it's going to drive the shaft, and the rest of the machine will start to drive as well. So that means the machine is clear and is ready to operate. Now occasionally what you'll find is a piece of debris, maybe a piece of welding rod or something that's gone through the system, and it will wedge itself between the wall of this stem or housing and the rotor. If it doesn't rotate, what we're going to do is we're going to stick our pliers in there, and we're going to grab onto one of the rotor fins, and we're going to turn back and forth, and we're going to try to break that piece of debris loose. And once you get the rotor shaft to move in this fashion, you should be able to check it for rotation fully like we did before. So you can stick your finger in there and rotate that. You can rotate it also like I mentioned with the pliers. You can quickly see if the machine is going to rotate. So what we're going to do now is look inside the gearbox, and we're going to check the gear teeth for wear. And we're going to check for debris inside the gearbox. So we're going to flip the unit over. We're going to take the gearbox cover off using a 7/16 socket and a ratchet. And we're going to loosen up these bolts. This will give us access to the inside of the gearbox so we can check the gears. And then we're going to use a putty knife or a screwdriver, and a small hammer to get inside the joint here. We're just going to wedge this apart here really easily. We're going to do it on a couple of sides. So we're going to get our putty knife underneath there. Sometimes it's easier to use 2 screwdrivers as well. You can use 2 at a time. And then it kind of usually will help you get this off a little easier. So once it's free, you're going to lift it up really slowly. We want to make sure that the shafts stay down inside when you pull this up. So we're going to pull this cover up nice and straight, and that'll allow us to look down inside the gearbox or obstructions. So the first thing we want to do is look at the gear teeth, and we can move these gears if the machine is free like it is by hand, and we can slowly rotate these gears with your finger. And we can just have a look at these gear teeth, and we want to look for wear. We want to look for any obstructions that might be lodged in the gear teeth, and just have a good look around inside of here. Make sure there's no debris that's stuck in here that when the machine is tipped back over could lodge in the gears and cause it to stop spinning. You can also grab this rotor shaft with your fingers. This is the other end of the shaft that we checked when we had the machine turned over. That's connected to the rotor, so we should be able to turn this by hand freely with our fingers, and we should see the machine start to drive. It should start to rotate. So once everything looks good in there, you're happy with what you see in there, there's no abnormal wear on the teeth and there's no debris inside of the gearbox, the rotor shaft is free, we can put the cover back on. In order to do that, we're just going to look for our dowel pin. We're going to pick up our dowel pin and our pin on the base, and we're going to line those up. We're going to line up our 3 shafts and bores here in the on the cover and in the gearbox. And we're going to line all of those targets up. You want to make sure everything's lined up, and we'll drop that back down. And then you're going to listen for the click that tells us the gearbox cover is down, and we're going to go ahead and put our bolts back in. So we'll just run these back down, and we're going to tighten the bolts back up. And now that we've seen that the rotor shaft is free and we have end play and the nozzles are clear, we can put this machine back into service. So we'll flip it back over. We'll put our stator back in, and our filter screen and our snap ring. And this unit's ready to head back out and back into service. So now that we've proven that the machine is working and that it's working properly, we would want to maybe contact maintenance and maybe look at your pump or your filter system and look at some other part of your cleaning process, because we've just discovered that the machine is working properly, so there must be a problem somewhere else in the facility. Thanks for watching.